This is Jay Martin.
Now, I know you hold precious metals, Jim. You've usually got a few gold or silver coins on your desk there. Talk to me about
Here it is, silver again.
there it is. Proportions. Do you have hard lines within your portfolio? You like to have 5%, 10% exposure to precious metals or physical gold or silver?
No, I don't have any hard lines like that. I mean, I guess if I were a trust department or a major bank, I would have hard lines like that. You know, somebody would say, okay, everybody 10% in gold or whatever, 8% in technology. I don't invest that way. I'm too lazy or too simple or something. I try to find the good opportunities, whatever they are, and try to focus. Diversification is not a way to get rich. Diversification is a way that brokers can protect themselves if you want to sue them. But if you really want to, you know, Henry Ford didn't diversify. He concentrated and focused. So if you want to get rich, figure out the best basket and put all your eggs in that basket. You've got to get the right basket, Jay, or you go bankrupt pretty quickly. But that's the way to succeed as an investor. It's also a way to go bankrupt very quickly if you get it wrong.
So is your basket agriculture right now?
Well, I own lots of things. I mean, I bought Chinese shares 30 years ago, and I still own a lot of them. So I own a lot of things that I've owned for a long time, but new money right now is mainly going into mainly agriculture, yes.
Okay.
And Uzbekistan, but Uzbekistan is tiny. As you pointed out, it's a very small market.
Okay. And I believe you're right now holding a fair amount of US dollars because it's perceived by the world still, anyways, thus far, as the safe haven asset class, whether or not it is that.
I would say my US dollar position is the largest currency position, at least relative, that I've ever had, for the reason you just said.
Interesting. Okay. Now, isn't that what makes, I mean, you could say it's not a safe haven, but people believe it is. And I ask the question, is there a difference if collectively the population believes something is a safe haven asset class? Doesn't that trust create the safety of that asset class, at least as long as the population believes it so?
Well, you said it, as long as, but when everybody goes to the same side of a boat, you better be worried about going to the other side of the boat, because they often will tip over, and eventually it does tip over. When everybody thinks the same thing, somebody's not thinking. History is pretty clear about that, whether it's war or investing or romance or whatever it happens to be. If you follow the crowd, you usually don't succeed.
So your exposure to US dollars is large relative to your historical exposure. That's been the best bet going for the last 6 months, that's for sure. Are there any metrics or activity that you're paying attention to, Jim, that would start to raise a red flag and say, this bet is getting hot, it's time to exit?
Well, I mentioned the technology bubble, which had formed, and it continues to, I mean, they're all down now, but it will probably revive if and when something causes a big rally. There's a lot of pessimism around in the equity markets now, Jay. And normally when when everybody's pessimistic, something happens. Some spark comes along, such as peace in Ukraine, which causes a big rally. I don't know what might change people's pessimism, but I do know that we have staggering amounts of pessimism all over the world in equities. I do not know what will cause that to change, but it nearly always has throughout history and probably will again. So I'm looking for that spark. I mentioned potential peace in Ukraine. That could do it, but it might be something else.
And that spark would be the trigger that would end. I guess my question though, Jim, is what would be the trigger that would end the global confidence in the US dollar that protects it currently as the safe haven asset? What will be
that's already happening. As I said before, many countries, both friends and enemies of the US, are now looking for something to compete with the US dollar.
Mm.
because Washington, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, has done a lot to cut people off and say, we don't like you, therefore you can not use the US dollar. We put sanctions on you or controls or whatever. So there are many people already looking. And so eventually, you know, people just say, okay, I'm moving my money now. But what's the spark? Who knows? I mean, if you look at Japan, for instance, Japan has had unbelievably low interest rates for a long time.
Mm.
And many times I've said, when is that going to end? It has to end. They're printing huge amounts of money, et cetera. Well, it's finally ending. But you and I could have been sitting here 3 years ago and said, you know, it's absurd what they're doing in Japan. It cannot last. But it did last. I mean, now it's ending. Now the Japanese currency is going down a lot, the lowest it's been in a long time, because enough people finally act together that it changes.
No, I haven't been
If
following.
you can tell me how to figure out the tipping point for any investment,
Yeah.
you're going to be really rich.
I'm with you. All right. Well, I'll let you know if I figure it out.